Okay, I'm back. As you can see, I've been lifting up the sock. You can set the speaker up, and you can tug upwards. I would do it gently. There's no rush here. It's coming up pretty easy. I'm just lifting it. Almost done. Okay. There's my speaker without the sock. And we've got some pretty good light, so let's take a moment to look at this. These thinner wires, that would be the tweeter section, that's the problem. There's a break somewhere in here. I could go to YouTube and look for a video on testing continuity on a bad speaker, and you'd find instructions on how to do that. These thin wires, that's what we're going to replace today. You can buy a replacement kit from Magneplanar. It's about $60 with shipping. They'll give you the wire and the glue. I'll show you all that in a moment. Or other people have gone out and bought 34 gauge copper wiring and kind of done it themselves. I'll identify the glue that you can use, and then you need to get this wire. What you'll notice about it, it's very fine. It's a little tricky to work with. And I'll explain that. I'll explain the tools I have set out about how I'm going to space these. Here's the mid-range base section. You can see thicker wires. A very common problem with these older Magneplanars are these thicker wires will start peeling up on the ends. That's not really our problem, but a lot of times it is. So I'm going to back up. There's the entire speaker. This weird white substance, that's malaxane glue. I'll show you that. Fairly old speaker. Now we're getting down to the crossover part. Now, Magneplanar says take apart both speakers and use one as a reference, and I think that's crazy. I think when you get to this point, what you should do is take out your digital camera and take a couple snapshots of the orientation of your inductor, your capacitors, and the wires. Just so if you have any problems when you're putting this all back together, you can turn on your computer monitor and look at a high-resolution picture of how things should go. That's my suggestion. Stop here before you do anything else. Take a couple pictures, the wire patterns, and especially these connectors down here, because we're going to be desoldering those. It's not difficult to do, but we want to pay attention to how this is all wired, and that's infinitely easier if we take a picture or two. All right, before we get started with the difficult work, I want to go over the tools you need to complete this project. Most of them are very cheap. They're easy to obtain. We've got Spray Mint 77. You can find that in the hardware stores. Acetone. We're going to use that to take up the old glue and dissolve it. We're going to use, you could use cotton balls. I went to CVS and got these cotton ovals to take up the glue. I've got a couple cheap brushes I'm going to use to apply the new glue. I'm going to use a little bit of DAP contact cement. It's not what Magneplanar recommends, but I'll show you why I'm going to use it. And DAP is especially helpful if those thicker wires are peeling up. Go to audioasylum.com, search for delaminate, look for an article by Peter Gunn, G-U-N-N. He's got a great how-to article of repairing those thicker wires using DAP. What Magneplanar recommends is this Super 77, this malaxane 3M. It's a different type of glue. There's my pick, screwdriver, a solder remover, some solder braid. Here's that very fine wire that I'm going to use to basically replace the tweeter. This is what Magneplanar sent me. Again, I think 34 gauge copper wire, copper magnet wire would work if you want to do that. I've also got a soldering gun and a little electrical tape that will come in handy. And of course, I'm setting all the screws aside in this dish. This I'm just going to use to wind the excess length of wire. What you do is you allow an extra foot or so on each end before you start gluing down. And so I'm going to wrap the extra wire around here, as you'll see in a minute, and then tape it down with electrical glue. So, nothing very expensive. This does require some time. I'd allow a full afternoon, maybe an entire day. Maybe you'll finish it sooner, but you have to allow time for the glue to dry in between coats, and why rush it? You don't want to do this a second time. Okay, we've still got some pretty decent light. So my task for the next, maybe 45 minutes or an hour is just to take my cotton swabs, dip them in the acetone, and gently swab away all this old glue. We're going to go all the way right down to the mylar, which will be clear and look very clean when we're all done. That requires a pretty gentle touch and some patience, but it's not rocket science. Here's something Magneplanar tells you to do that I disagree with. Magneplanar tells you to lift up the wire, and I would not do that. It's very delicate wire. It will snap. It will fracture. What I think you should do is lift up as much of the glue as you possibly can until you're down to just a thin trace of glue underneath each wire. Then at the very end, you can peel up this wire very easily without all the breaks you get if you try to do it right now. So I would not follow Magneplanar's instructions and try to peel up this very fine wire at the get-go. But strip the glue first, then the wire will come up easy. It won't be a battle. All right, I don't know if you can tell, if you can see this or not, but the acetone applied gently is stripping up that glue. And this is what we're going to do next 30 to 40 minutes. The glue is going to come up, and I'm going to end up replacing a number of these cotton swabs. You want to pick up the goop on the swab and move on to another swab. All of this has to come up. Underneath it, as you're beginning to see, the mylar surface, which is clear. You know, obviously we want to stay away from these thicker wires. I don't want to have to re-glue those. So stay with your thin wires, tweeter wires. Whichever side you want to start it on, just very gently. I'm going in one direction, and I'm just wiping. All right, I'm going to stop filming for right now. I'm going to clear off a lot of the glue, and then we'll come back. Okay, we're back, and when we still have good light, I want to show you my results after wiping for a few minutes. I'm going to switch to a different cotton pad, but you can see that we're gradually clearing out the glue, and I hope you can see the detail. These are the magnets, and that's the mylar, clear sheets, the mylar. And our task is going to be, after we take up this wire, we're going to put down new wire, and we're going to try and put it so it falls in between the gap of these vertical magnets. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but if you were doing this yourself, it's actually pretty clear. So we're going to continue. This is a little messy, but you know, there's no reason to think that if you're patient and you have a gentle hand that you can't do as good a job of this as someone at the Magneplan factory could do. It's your time and these are your speakers. So we're going to continue. I'll be back in just a few minutes. Okay, we're back. I've probably gone through 15, 20 cotton pads, stripping the glue off the tweeter section. On the whole, it's gone well. Just two small problems. One is there's a slight break in the mylar right about there. We're going to have to tape that up. The other problem is around this button, it looked to me like the wires were beginning to pop up. And this is a problem area in these speakers. So I've been stripping the old glue off this area. And we're going to fix that with the DAP that we looked at earlier. This is a very strong contact cement. You'll find it hiding around the Gorilla Glue, Elmer's Glue, and your local Lowe's, Menards, Home Depot. But the DAP is going to work well for around that area. But I want to repair that because I don't want to come back in here and have to do more repairs. So this is kind of what it looks like. It's not perfectly clean. But this is a good point, I think, to begin lifting up the wires. This is also a good point to take a picture of the orientation of the tweeter wires before I actually begin to peel them up and remove them. So in a second, I'm going to start lifting the wires and cleaning gently underneath them.